Welcome back, Hive Scummers. Today I'm showing you how I made this tank for my Chaos Helots gang, and I'm calling this tank the Tick. Yeah, so as you can tell, it's heavily derived from the Plague Burst Crawler. Right, let's stop this thing from spinning and let's get into it. So the Plague Burst Crawler normally faces that direction. Normally it comes on 2 sprues. So I've only used the first sprue, which is, as you can tell, the tracks and the now front half, but normally the back half of the vehicle. So normally these 2 pipes are trailing toxic slime or sludge or other horrible nasties, thanks to the Death Guard out the back. But this I thought would be great for the front. So it looks like 2 glass panes there, which I am just going to green stuff that little bit in there, because I'm not entirely sure if that's a crack in the glass or not. But yeah, normally that's the back, and normally that's where the mortar sits. Turrets face forward, and this is the front of the tank. But I thought this looks like it's designed to go that way. And in my head, I thought I could make something that looks like the Thundercat tank, because I'm a child of the 80s.
Thundercats!
In reality, I had a few little bits left over. I wanted to try some stuff, and I wasn't on a hobby budget, but I like to make most of my vehicles and most of my models from Games Workshop bits and minimal green stuff. My green stuff and skills aren't amazing. I can make cloaks, I can make beards, I can make hair, maybe the occasional necklace or something, and fill in gaps. And that's about it. So I wasn't going to use these rigid spines, but in the end I thought it does make it look quite chaosy. Plus the 2 main strips of plasticard would look a bit boring. So I started off with the main section, which is the floor pan and the 2 side bits and the front. So the front was just that section. This piece here is from a top of a Rhino, I believe. So the reason it's green plastic is because it comes from the Conquest plastic kits from the magazine, and I had some Necromunda piping. Decided to make a slightly different hatch than you normally get with your Space Marine stuff, because I wanted it to be repurposed for Necromunda. So to make it a bit more chaosy, I decided to cut the top off of Zone Mortalis columns, and I have a load of those left over, so never chuck anything away. But to make it look kind of chaosy, very much like the Warhounds, there's organic material bonding the metal together, oozing out a few nodules, pussy bits, boils, sinew, so you can't tell where the organic material begins and the metal finishes. Some keen-eyed people will recognise that as the back of the Rhino chassis. So Razorbacks, Rhinos, Vindicators, Predators, all that good stuff. You may recognise these bits, which I have magnetised for future proofing, off the top of Chaos Rhinos. That look pretty cool. So vehicles wise, in Necromunda you can use pretty much any heavy or special or basic weapon on top of your vehicles. So I'm using those as missile launchers, because I thought missile launchers would be pretty fun. I mean, the Plague Burst Cannons would be very good flamethrowers, but flamethrowers against vehicles, I'm not sure how well they're going to do, although they are auto-hitting, because I've not played Ash Waste yet. I've made several vehicles for my Goliath gang, but still not played Ash Waste yet in our campaign. So that's basically what it is. Fairly straightforward. A little bit of plastic card on the top, just different colour plastic card on the side. Tiny holes drilled with a pin drill and little rivets dropped in. Little rivets like... Oh, it disappeared already. That was easy. And it's easier to show you in this tub. I have literally thousands of rivets. This cost me maybe £2, but fantastic for making rivets. Just an eBay purchase. So, drilled tiny holes, put the rivets in with some PVA because I thought super glue would be pretty dangerous. I end up more on my fingers than anything else. And I stuck some check plate in the back. Now, I wanted to make it look a bit ragtag, so inside there, along the edges of the check plate, I've got some crafting glue, which is slightly thicker, glitter glue, because it looks like weld when it dries. So I'm going to paint it all up. I'll put a purple bluish tinge to it to make it look more like weld. And I'm still in two minds about the check plate, whether I should cut a bit out and make it look like it's been attempted at a repair. So I move a little hatch to one side and you can see like cables or something underneath. But considering it's fairly thin there, I didn't really want to mess it up too much. Plus I always push my luck. I'll go, oh, once I add this, once I add that, and then I've gone too far and I can't take it back. What I do like about this kit is, normally with a Plague Burst Crawler, you normally have a bit on the side sponson here, so you're covering up all this lovely detail. You can just kind of see it through the side at a bit of an angle. With this, it's a lot more exposed, in my opinion, a lot more Necromunda. Now, whether or not a Plague Burst Crawler tank would be on the surface of Necromunda, or what's left of it, I don't know. Highly unlikely. I mean, Space Marines rarely come to Necromunda, so the fact that a Chaos Space Marine would ever be on there, I don't know. It's obviously purchased from the black market. It must have come through the Eye of Selene on some kind of cargo freighter or something, and they must have not known what they've bought. But my Chaos gang have repurposed it, and once again the Chaos vibes are showing through by the weird pussy growths squeezing through the technology there, through the mechanical sections. So it didn't take me very long, but typical Ross fashion, umming and ahhing about what to do. So I think the next thing is, let's throw some paint on it. Okay, so there it is, roughly painted. The reason I say roughly painted is, there's a fine line for me between dirt and edge highlighting and being too clean and being too punchy. This thing's supposed to go in Ash Waste, so I really want to put some weathering pigment on and make those tracks really, really, really dirty. I have chipped it a little bit, and there is rusted streak marks here and there, like on the rivets there. And you can see on the front as well. So there, and there. I like edge highlighting my models. I like making them a little bit grubby. But when you cover the whole thing in streak and grime, is edge highlighting really worth it? I don't know. But I might pick out a bit more detail on maybe some of the rivets, just a lighter purple, and on the edges of the chipping on the top of the tank. But rather than slating my painting, I just want to show you the finished piece. So the tick, this is what I'm going to call this tank, because it is pretty much a tank. If it's truly the tick, surely I guess it's got to be blue for those tick fans out there. But my Helots gang is purple, so I want to keep it within theme. I do think it kind of looks like the back tank from the Dark Knight comic. Sleek kind of front to it, chunkier back, and these little bits on the front. And like I said, I magnetised the weapons out. I've gone with Havoc launchers as missile launchers for the time being. And I didn't use too much plasticard, like I said, but I was pretty happy with filling this gap over here. Not that anyone's probably ever going to tell. Let's get some light on it. Just in there with a cable tie, giving it some ridgy kind of texture. I haven't made the flesh pop too much. I just wanted to have a little bit of a pinky, bulbous, I guess, fleshy flesh tone, if that makes sense, rather than an undead necrotic tone. I want this thing to be like a chubby flesh, I guess, slightly pinky, because if it was too pale I think it's too stark, but I wanted the streak and grime to be grubby, and then a couple of really bright spots like the screens, which I could always add detail to later on. A little bit of the power core there. But yeah, a bit of a contrast between grubby and light. So I'm pretty happy with this tank. Like I said, this is for my Helot Chaos gang for Necromunda. And what rules would you give it? Would you completely custom build, or would you base it on a Ridge Runner? So it has got missile launchers like the Ridge Runner, but I do want 2 of. So maybe I can go twin linked missile launchers, I don't know. But I don't want it to be too broken. I certainly don't think it is as big as the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. So if this is nearly half of this plinth, I guess, the Cargo 8 definitely is the whole of that plinth. So it's certainly not going to have the Cargo 8 kind of rules, or even the squat tanks, but it's fairly substantial, so it's at least a medium vehicle. But I am pretty happy with it. I'm pretty chuffed. I'll put some pictures up on my Instagram account. It's a little bit clearer, so I haven't got a bright, crazy light on it. But yeah, I am pretty chuffed with it. Didn't take me very long to build, apart from the umming and anding. Classic Ross. So yeah, basically it's the first half of the Plague Burst Crawler sprue. A little bit of plasticard. Some Havoc launchers, which if you're a Chaos player, you probably have a couple of spare Havoc launchers kicking around from the old Rhino kits and whatnot. And 2 of the Zone Mortalis columns and walls, top of the columns there. So you can see just inside there, the top of the columns and walls, and in there, the back of a Rhino. Oh yeah, don't forget some check plate. So the check plate I've made reasonably clean. Could have grubbed it up a little bit more, and I can even possibly cut bits out of it to make it really beaten. But I wanted this tank to be fairly much intact.